Chronicles, a 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Madson. I write about the 49ers over at NinersWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. Joining me, as always, Chris Biderman, a man who loves a flat bill hat almost as much as Kyle Shanahan. Yeah? Is that a good one? That the Sharks one?
This is it's a Sharks colored Cooperage hat.
In honor of their first win last night. I love that. I love that for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you were dialed that 2-1 victory over the Flyers.
Yeah, I was super locked in. Actually, a good buddy of mine works for the equipment staff of the Flyers, so shout out to John Peters. He was in town. I was not able to go see him because I do not live close to the Bay Area anymore. But yeah, man, Sharks, big W.
Yeah, huge
only
W,
up from here.
Yep,
it's only up from here.
They're going to turn it around 110-1. Here they come. Anyways, speaking of clothing, let me tell you about our favorite clothing brand. Lamb Chops, sglambchops.com is the website. Candlestick 20 is the promo code. They have hoodies, shorts, t-shirts, anything you can imagine. It's all high quality. It's all super comfortable. And of course, it looks dope.
It's the most important thing, Kyle, as you know, to look dope. I'm feeling like I look pretty dope right now because I'm in my Lamb Chops hoodie, the Heather joint. It is extremely comfortable, extremely appropriate for this fall weather we're enjoying right now. And, my
favorite thing about the hoodie that you are wearing, that specific one, is it is perfectly oversized. Like I don't want a hoodie to be skin tight, and it is a touch bit. It's like a quarter size bigger than a normal size of that size.
great for lounging and great for going out. It can do both. Get you a hoodie that can do both.
This is the hoodie that you told your other hoodies not to worry about. sglambchops.com. Candlestick 20 is the promo code. Check them out today. We're also sponsored by Cooperage Brewing, and Chris, you're just decked out in sponsors today.
Yeah, I'm going full on sponsored content. Just yeah, I think something's going on with your mic.
It is. Is that better? That's okay. Better. There we go. Now it's a party.
Yeah,
we are back, baby. So you were decked out, Cooperage hat, and you can get your Cooperage hat they have like a Niners colored one. They have a Sharks colored one. They have the Pride one. There's all sorts of good merch, and you can get that at the Cooperage. Brewery. There it is. Yep. Jeez Louise. I was going to say tap house, but it's not a tap house. That's located in Santa Rosa. Really great spot. Always a good food truck. Good vibes. Bring your dog. There's a ton of outdoor seating, ton of indoor seating. One of my very favorite breweries, not just for the beer, but for the vibes. And of course, the beer is awesome as well.
Absolutely. We love our friends at Cooperage. Shout out to them. Go see them if you're in Santa Rosa, or order some beer online if you're of age 21 and up in California. They will ship you beer within the state. And it's great. We love Cooperage. I have a whole lot of Candlestick Chronicles Hazy waiting for me in the fridge right now, which I'm probably gonna go get after.
Crack one. Go. You can go crack one right now. When I start to ramble, dude, just get up and go get one. I can carry it. I got you.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do that. Let's see how quickly I can do that.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. I didn't mean right now. Okay. So Chris is literally going to go get a Cooperage, and I'm going to start the pod. Visit CooperageBrewing.com to get your good beer today. All right, Kyle Shanahan spoke. We're doing this Wednesday as the 49ers ramp back up for the start of Week 10. They visit the Jaguars in Jacksonville as they come out of their bye. They're 5-3 coming out, and they had plenty of questions going into the second half of the year. They had questions about their defense. Their offense hasn't been able to move the ball. They're all banged up. So Kyle Shanahan addressed all of those things in his first presser since the bye week started. And I think we'll start with kind of what has become the news of the day, Chris, is Steve Wilks is going to start calling plays from the sideline instead of up in the booth. So take that for what it's worth. It's a change. Kyle Shanahan said in his press conference there's pros and cons to being in the booth versus being outside. He said he actually prefers to be in the booth because you can take more notes and write more things down, but he's only been in the booth one time, and Steve Wilks has done both in his career. My guess is that the biggest thing with this this is not going to be the magical thing that turns the Niners defense around. The Niners aren't going to start suddenly playing better because Steve Wilks is hanging out on the sideline. However, you and I
Hanging
both
out. Chilling.
just chilling. He's got a 4-pack of Cooperage, watching some football, just taking it all in. No, so he's going to be out on the sideline calling plays, and you and I both learned today via Nick Wagner, our favorite cast member over at ESPN, that a coach in the booth can't talk to players on the field. There has to be, the only direct line of communication is from coaches on the sideline. So Steve Wilks was relaying calls to Johnny Holland, the linebackers coach, and then Johnny Holland was then relaying those plays to Fred Warner, who would then. So that's A, just kind of a extra step, and B, for me, if I'm coaching a team with Fred Warner and Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and all these super high IQ players, I would want to be on the field with them, asking them what they're seeing, asking them, getting their input on how to make these in-game adjustments, these little in-game adjustments that the 49ers have been so good at over the last few years. And if you're relying just on your few minutes at halftime, I just don't think that's enough. And so I think that just by itself is going to be helpful. Again, they have to execute and they have to do a bunch of things better, and we'll talk about that. But I think the biggest benefit is going to be getting to talk firsthand with players after every single series about what they're seeing, about what they think they can do differently. And that by itself, I think, will be a benefit.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's one thing we don't know, and Steve Wilks isn't going to talk to the media until Thursday. And I'm sure he'll be asked all about this. But what was the issue? The play calling, and as you mentioned, having to go through the extra step of having Johnny Holland relay the call from Wilks to Fred Warner, whereas now you can expedite the process and streamline it by just having Wilks talk to Warner directly. Like, was that part of the issue that they had? Or is it something, to your point, where between series, when the offense is on the field, you have your coordinator down there going over the picture and the film on the tablet in real time, right? Instead of having to sort of play telephone in that sense and try to figure out exactly what's going on. And when, I think they still do have the telephones on the sidelines. So like Fred Warner could conceivably pick up a phone and talk to Steve Wilks while he was in the booth. But I think it might just be like, maybe it's just something as simple as a vibe change, right? Just like, let's just shake things up, because clearly whatever's happening isn't working. And it's overall just kind of an admission of, I think, what you and I both suspected, in that there was something wrong with the communication. There were so the communication wasn't good enough. Whether that's between the coordinator and the players, or between the players themselves. And I think it might have been emblematic of just how disjointed the defense was, even between the secondary and the pass rush. We've talked. I'm not going to reiterate the point we've kept making about tying coverage and the pass rush together, but you'd have to think this is at least a step towards solidifying everything. And for a veteran group that's been together for as long as the Niners defense has been, for the large part, like, they've had their coordinator with them on the sideline every season since Kyle Shanahan's been there until this season, with Robert Saleh down on the sideline, obviously, and DeMeco Ryans on the sideline. So Steve Wilks has been a head coach in the league. Like, the sideline is not completely foreign to him. So I don't know that it's...
I love the idea that he gets down there and is like, the fuck is this?
He's just
lost. There's so many people.
But I just think, like, any way to ultimately, for me, it's just like, can you just create a vibe check, like create something that just allows you to have better communication, to streamline everything. It can't hurt, because look, like, as our buddy Nick Wagner mentioned, 49ers defense through 5 games, this was a tweet he had, third in the NFL in yards allowed per game, first in points allowed per game. Defensive EPA was 5th, takeaways 6th. In the last 3 games during their losing streak, points per game 24th, yards allowed 395. That's 30th. That's 3rd from last, which is insane. defensive EPA 31st and takeaways. They only have 4 in 3 games. Like putting Steve Wilks on the sideline isn't going to solve everything, but I would think it's probably just like shaking up the snow globe a little bit and being like, all right, let's figure this out, because we do need to make some sort of change and adjustment to the way they've been playing defense this year.
And one of the big selling points with Steve Wilks was him being like a player's coach. Like, players love playing for Steve Wilks, so why not get him near the players? They have to execute better in coverage. They have to get the quarterback on the ground and hit the quarterback and move him off his spot and make him uncomfortable. Those are all things that they're still going to have to do, and they're not going to magically do it because Steve Wilks is now on the sideline instead of up in the booth. So that's all out there. But I'm with you. They had to do something a little bit different. And if this is going to help Wilks, then great. Question, though. Have you ever seen Fred Warner on the telephone? I can't remember the last time. I think the only time I see images of players on the phone on the sideline is like in throwback games and some college games.
Yeah, it might be where they have like a headset or something, or like an earpiece with a microphone on it. That there has to be technology that's better than like picking up a microphone, to your point. But that's typically what it
on a really
been.
long string.
Right, just going from the sideline to the press box. No, I haven't.
Was that one of Nick Cray's jobs? Was just to run up and relay the messages?
That would take a lot of time. It's not easy to get from the sideline to
so long,
especially given you share the elevators in that suite tower with everybody
eight,
in
please.
that suite.
Eight, please.
All the way up. All the way up, immediate.
I always forget if I'm on 7 or 8 when I go in there. And so every time they go, what floor? And I just look at I have to like look at the things and I'm like, the press box one. I don't know, man. Anyways.
Yeah, you just want to say press box for everyone else in the elevator to know that you're.
And then I hard sniff afterwards. Press box, please. I'm a personal friend of I'm a personal friend of Matt Barrows. I tweet with Josh Dubow sometimes.
Oh, speaking of Josh Dubow, I do want to give him a little bit of credit here because, as Nick pointed out to us, Josh let Nick know that there was a rule.
Great point.
Stating that only coaches on the sideline can be in communication with the players when it comes to like the green dot in their helmet. And Josh, as a Michigan alum, obviously knows where the signals are coming from. So I want to make sure that Josh gets the credit that he deserves for apprising those in the media workroom of the proper rules, because we know of anything, like Josh knows the rules, and would never associate or run afoul of.
He's real tight with Connor Stallions or what?
The signals coming in. Yeah.
Jesus.
Shout out to friend of the pod.
We have one less subscriber now. Maybe 2. Tracy, another Michigan alum, is going to take that personally and also unsubscribe. It'd be like
Tracy
that
go to Michigan? I didn't know that.
Stop. I don't even know if she listens. Does Tracy listen? Well, I guess we'll find out. We're gonna find out.
Messages will be open after this episode, so we'll see.
Hey, it'd be super funny if she was watching right now and she started blowing us up on the spot. She's like, "Yeah, you bitch." Like, oh no.
I have a take on the whole Michigan scandal.
If Tracy was ever mad at me, I'd be so sad. Anyways, keep going.
I think Tracy's incapable of being mad at people.
God, I hope
so. To Tracy. But I have a take on the Michigan scandal. I know no one really cares, but like so many people, I don't know so many people, but it's like, oh, Michigan has to pay. Michigan has to be punished. I think the truth being out there is punishment enough, right? Like if it came out that Michigan beat Ohio State and really like dominated them, particularly defensively, because they knew which plays were coming, that fact being out there and the evidence being out there is enough for me. I don't need them to vacate wins or like forfeit those in retrospect. Like,
right.
Just have the truth be out there and have Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan program live with it.
A great example of this.
just know that the only way that they could beat Ohio State was by stealing their signals.
A great example of this is the Houston Astros. Like, stuff happened to the GM and the manager, and like Carlos Beltran lost a managerial job because of it and all that jazz. Like, I get this stuff, but none of the players had anything happen to them. It's just that they get booed mercilessly in every ballpark that they've been to, and nobody thinks that their 2017 World Series title is real and all that. Right? So I'm with you. It's there. So.
CJ Stroud struggled against Michigan, but pretty good in the NFL. Odd how that works.
Also lit up Georgia. Hey, on that, I'm sorry, guys. We're going to talk about 49ers injury stuff. I swear to God. But just on that, this is now just Kyle and Chris BSing as buddies for a second. Which is not like that's different, but about non-49er stuff. It's so funny to me that CJ Stroud had really good tape. He was a very good prospect. And the knock was, well, can he create out of structure? This is a good offense with really good receivers. He doesn't have to do a lot outside the pocket. Is he capable of doing that? And then he did it against freaking Georgia, loaded with NFL players on the defensive side, and lit them up, and probably should have won that game. And everyone went, oh, CJ Stroud just did all of the things that we weren't sure he could do, and he did it against the best defense in college football by a freaking mile. And then it came draft time, and it was like, I don't know if he can do it. It's like, what did we watch? Did we not all watch that game? The draft process is screwed up. And I know he still went second. He went second. It's not like he dropped to the second round. He didn't Will Levis it. But it just, the pre-draft discourse about CJ Stroud was insane. But
how do you feel right now if you're Carolina and you traded your first round pick for next year to go get Bryce Young first overall?
Pretty dumb.
And there's a reasonable chance that your pick that's going to the Bears is going to be a top 3 pick.
Yeah, it's going to be the 1 pick. I think it's going to be the first pick.
Maybe.
I don't think they're going to win the game.
But it's not even like you really. I mean, they have issues beyond Bryce Young. I'm not saying Bryce Young isn't good or won't be good, but man, it is a tough, particularly like given the quarterback class that could be incoming here. Like you sold the farm for Bryce Young, where there could be 3 or 4 prospects better than Bryce Young next year. And you passed up on CJ Stroud?
Yeah, and like if you're going to take a project quarterback, which he is a little bit, like you have to figure out how to utilize a 5 foot, what did we settle on? 160-pound quarterback or however. Like he is dramatically undersized. And that can work, but you have to figure out how to make it work. And figuring out how to make it work behind a terrible offensive line and with Adam Thielen as his best receiver, that's just not going to, that development that needs to happen and the system that needs to be installed to help him be successful is not going to happen with the personnel that they have.
Right.
And now they don't have a first round pick to help him out. Like it just, I think it was backwards team building for me. But anyways,
this is why Kyle Shanahan punted on quarterbacks in 2017.
Almost, yes. Yeah, like seriously, it was dang. All these guys are a little bit of a project, and Kirk Cousins, baby.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go to the alternate world where Kirk Cousins was not going to be available, where he signed a long-term deal in Washington. I'd love to see what that looked like then.
Kyle Shanahan said during that draft, I think after the first night, that he had Mitch Trubisky as his top-rated quarterback. But I kind of think he was lying.
Yeah, I don't think they probably did a lot of work on quarterbacks, so he just picked a name that he knew.
I feel like in my head, I'm going to go back and look at that draft class real quick. I feel like in my head, there's probably like a 2nd or 3rd round quarterback that Kyle Shanahan really liked. More
CJ
so than
Beathard.
The first round. Ooh.
It was CJ Beathard, who they traded up for in the 3rd round.
Yikes.
Tough. Okay.
God, Deshaun Kaiser was in that draft.
Dude, I was a big Deshaun Kaiser guy. Swing and a miss draft take from your boy.
Yeah.
Trent Williams did not.
Nobody's perfect.
Trent Williams did not. I was all in on Fred Warner, though, so shout out to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very prominent Bay Area media figure who was out on Fred Warner, excuse me. And
who was that?
He'll remain nameless.
Okay. Talk offline.
Talk soon.
Yeah.
Trent Williams did not practice Wednesday, and It's not so much that he didn't practice that is my concern, because he didn't practice in the bonus practice Monday. Rest for his ankle has kind of been the whole mantra during his time off, and he usually doesn't practice Wednesdays anyways. So it wasn't a huge surprise to see him listed as a non-participant. But Kyle Shanahan got asked about whether there's more. So Shanahan originally said it's a low ankle sprain for Trent Williams. They avoided the high ankle sprain. So he got asked today, is there anything more going on with Trent's ankle? He said, quote, "Yeah, I think obviously there is. Just when he's got a lot of history in there with stuff. It didn't show up as a high or anything like that, but when you've had that over your career, there's a number of things that with how it's taking longer than expected to heal, it's more than a low." Like, what? Like, that's bad. That's not, oh, low ankle sprain, they're just going to rest it. He's actively saying there's more than just an ankle sprain going on, and whether it's a high ankle sprain or there's some kind of like severe damage. Like, the fact he hasn't gone on IR yet, I guess is a good sign, but it's hard to believe he's going to play Sunday with the head coach being like, "Oh yeah, it's more than that."
Yeah, it doesn't sound great. And it definitely sounds like what Kyle Shanahan's alluding to is the fact that there's damage from past ankle injuries. And if you remember in the 2022 season, or I think leading up to it, Trent Williams said he kind of regretted playing in the NFC Championship game against the Rams, playing on that pretty badly sprained ankle that he had in that game, because it might have done more damage than obviously it did damage, right? So I wonder if it's damage to the point, like, does Trent need surgery in the offseason to like clean some stuff up? And
Speculating, we don't know.
Speculating. And again, like, I do wonder if there's an element, like, first of all, I wonder, because the 49ers are talking about it sort of in different terms than, a few weeks ago, where, after the Browns and Vikings games, it was like, yeah, we think he'll be back in a couple weeks. And now it sounds like they don't know. I wonder if he got a second opinion, right? Like, did he get a second opinion, or was there some other imaging done that revealed that there was more damage there than they initially saw, or the injury was worse than they initially thought? So again, just speculating, and I'm, it's not great to like speculate on injuries, but I think it's fair to just ask questions like, what's really happening here? And, maybe it's a case of like, yeah, it's sore and it's not all the way back, but, we think ultimately we can get him back for December 3rd against the Eagles. If we just rest him and get him, like, that's our best shot at getting him close to 100% for the rest of the season, is just giving him a couple more weeks of rest. Or is this something like, yeah, he might need surgery and we're going to delay that till the end of the season unless it becomes a really pressing issue,
right?
As the season goes on. So yeah, I mean, at this point, the way Kyle Shanahan's talking about it doesn't sound like Trent Williams is going to be available Sunday in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
at least that's just me reading the tea leaves. The way Shanahan's talking about it, that's my impression.
Yeah, when he got asked, someone said, "I know Trent normally does the vet day on Wednesday. Do you expect him to practice tomorrow?" Shanahan said, quote, "I hope so. I know he can't today, though." Hey, man, that's not great. But
yeah,
fingers crossed for Trent Williams that he is back in action as soon as possible and healthy and playing. Deebo Samuel was back on Wednesday, a full participant in practice, kind of as expected. I actually thought he might be limited early on, just working his way back, but he's just a full go. And that's a good sign for his chances to play on Sunday, which is, I think, helpful for the 49ers. One of the things with Trent Williams that this is where I think Kyle Shanahan adds a ton of value to a team, is their run game was just not working without Trent Williams and without Deebo Samuel. And I think if you're picking a coach to scheme around not having Trent Williams over a bye week and figuring out how to create a run game when it's Jalen Moore, who's done a fine job, but he's not Trent Williams. And the run game, I think, has struggled largely because of number 71's absence. This is where you can see Kyle Shanahan start to kind of scheme up some open runs and scheme up some of those explosive plays that they've really been missing on the ground.
I wonder if it's as simple as like, you have Debo Samuel, so that opens up the bubble screen game in a
Mm-hmm.
way that you didn't really have. Because I mean that's been the answer so often for the
Yep.
49ers when defenses have loaded the box and have 5 down linemen. It's like, all right, if you're going to pack the box with 8, 9 guys, then we're going to run a bubble screen to the outside, and all we have to
Yep.
do is block 2 guys, and then Debo Samuel's off to the races, right? Well, you haven't had Debo Samuel to really combat teams loading up the box in the last few weeks to run those screens. And you can do it with Ray McLeod and Brandon Ayuk to a certain extent. But obviously, like, I don't know. Is it fair to say that Debo's, I don't have like empirical evidence to back this up, but is it fair to say that Debo's probably one of the best bubble screen receivers in the league?
Yeah, it's just getting a guy. He's one of the best players with the ball in his hands in space,
Yeah.
and that's what bubble screens create. So yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would assume
So
so.
maybe that's an element of the offense that we can look to on Sunday. Like teams load up the box, that takes players away from where Debo Samuel would be outside, and then maybe generate some big pop plays that way. Maybe that loosens up the box, and now you're allowing Christian McCaffrey a little bit more space.
Mhm.
So that's something to definitely keep an eye on Sundays.
Yeah, and I think there's stuff you can do with motion with Debo that can move some players around and give you a numbers advantage that Ray McLeod and Jawan Jennings weren't giving you. So
Yeah.
interested to see if Debo Samuel can provide that impact, even if Trent Williams isn't in the lineup. Last thing from Shanahan's presser for me today was I don't I did not watch the presser. I just read the transcript. So I don't know who asked this question, but they essentially asked Shanahan. Give me 1 second. I lost it for a second. You mentioned how your team looked fatigued and slow after the Bengals game. Is there any area on either side of the ball you can inject some speed before the offseason? And I didn't think Shanahan said the team was slow necessarily, just that the defense was playing sluggish and they looked tired. But okay. Shanahan says, I'm not going to read the whole answer, but he gave a 169 word answer and did not mention Danny Gray. And don't love that for Danny Gray, who John Lynch said that everybody who was on injured lists was like healthy and ready to have their practice window open. They opened practice windows for Robert Beal and Darrell Luter and Samuel Womack. So maybe Danny Gray's just more hurt than they initially let on. But the fact that Shanahan didn't even mention him as like, and once we get Danny Gray healthy, he's good to go. Like, that's just not a great sign.
One thing I heard about Danny Gray from inside the building was that he was going to have to become a better practice player in the pros than he was in college. And Kyle Shanahan is definitely not the type of coach who gives out playing time to guys who don't earn it on the practice field. Like Danny Gray's never been in a position where the 49ers felt he was talented enough to where he could, not look awesome at practice or not give maximum effort at practice and then get playing time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So with Danny Gray, and again, I don't know his injury status. I would just be speculating if I spoke on his injury status, but
Sure.
I think there's probably an element of Danny Gray would have to really prove that he's better than somebody on the active roster before he would get elevated or before his practice window would open. So they potentially would elevate him. And maybe they're just keeping the option open, right? Because if your 21-day practice window opens and you don't get added to the active roster, then you revert to season-ending injured reserve and you don't play that season. So maybe the Niners are like, yeah, maybe if we absolutely had to have Danny Gray, we would elevate him and play him. But maybe they're saying, okay, he's not better than anybody that we have active right now. So maybe later in the season, if we do deal with a significant injury at receiver, then we elevate him and add depth to the position. But to your point, like, I don't think anything that's happened in the offseason program and in training camp has really given the 49ers a ton of confidence in terms of like, or I guess optimism that they have like a lot in Danny Gray, or they have something that they can't keep Danny Gray off the field. Like, I don't think there's that feeling of like, we have to play this guy.
Yeah.
And I think we learned that when Ronnie Bell pretty clearly surpassed him in the pecking
Yeah.
order. Ronnie Bell, what, 7th round pick
In his first offseason,
in his first offseason, right?
playing
So
without
we know,
knowing what plays the defense was going to run.
we know that's very funny. We know Kyle Shanahan's typically tough on receivers, right? Like Brandon Ayuk even went through it a couple years ago to start the season. So it's not anything new for Shanahan to have a tough time just like giving receivers playing time.
Mm-hmm.
But
What
I think it's pretty clear at this point, Danny Gray is not Brandon Ayuk, right?
I'm gonna have to be. I'm in your corner on this take. I'm on that side of the fence. Uh, no, and you have a quarterback now, and somebody might argue that Danny Gray was drafted to play with Trey Lance because Trey Lance is going to push the ball down the field and it was going to utilize Danny Gray's speed, et cetera, et cetera. But you have a quarterback in Brock Purdy who is also willing to push it down the field. He doesn't have the arm strength of Trey Lance, like not by a long shot, but he will cut it loose and throw a deep ball consistently. And if Danny Gray was consistently winning in that area of the field or could affect the game in different areas, then maybe you'd see him more. But we hear all the time about receivers. Deebo Samuel brought this up on Radio Row last year at the Super Bowl. I forget what show it was on. It might have been Slow News Day with Kevin Clark. It might have been the Rich Eisen show. I forget exactly which one it was. But he basically said Kyle Shanahan is so precise with where you are to line up as a receiver. If you are lining up a half yard off of where you need to line up and you can't figure out how to get where you need to go, you just won't play. They would rather have a less talented player execute the play properly than a more talented player potentially mess the play up by being lined up in the wrong spot by half a yard. And I think that's probably that's a benefit, but it's also probably detrimental at times. And if Danny Gray is A, not figuring that out, and then B, not able to win in short areas of the field where he's going to be a player who defenses can know, okay, when he's on the field, he's going deep. They are going to look to cut it loose in the deep third of the passing game here. Or if he can't block, like there's so many little things that you need to be good at as a receiver to play for Kyle Shanahan, and there's just no evidence that Danny Gray is thriving at any of those. And the fact he's still on IR, as what John Lynch has said, is a healthy player, like that's a bad sign.
Can we go back through the Niners' third-round picks, the last 7 of them I just counted since 2021?
Can I try and name all of them?
Sure.
Trey Sermon.
Okay.
Ambry Thomas.
Yep.
Danny Gray.
Yep.
Cameron Latu.
Yeah, you're jumping around a little bit.
No, I know. TDP was the other one in 2022. There's Cameron Latu, Jake Moody, Obv, and who was the other one this year? The other one this year was Jair Brown.
Yeah.
Is that all of them?
Yeah.
Bang, bang.
And
let's go.
Aside from the kicker, I don't know. What does a kicker count as a starter?
Oh, yeah. Jake Moody's a starter for sure.
You think you count Jake Moody as a starter? Okay. So they've drafted.
He starts at the position he plays. That's a starter. Come on.
They've drafted one starter in the 3rd round out of 7 picks in their last 3 drafts.
Yikes. I think Jair Brown's going to play. Jair
sure.
Brown's good. Like
typically, you draft 7 players. Like I would say the hit rate in the 3rd round, and a hit rate is not like a superstar, but someone who like makes your roster and is a contributing player who you think one day could start. In the 3rd round, that's typically like 25 to maybe like 33%, like a quarter to a third hit rate. Does that feel right to you? And they're at 2 of 7. Are we going to give them Jair Brown as like,
just throw Jair Brown in there. Yeah.
So Trey Sermon's gone. Ambry Thomas, they're actively working to keep off the field. right now. Danny Gray on IR. They have it doesn't seem like they have any intent on activating him anytime soon. Ty Davis Price can't really get on the field and struggles to get active when there aren't injuries. Cam Latu done for his rookie season. Didn't really show much in the preseason that gave you a whole lot of confidence. Yep. Jake Moody's Jake Moody, and then Jair Brown. Jair Brown's probably the guy you feel best about overall. But that's 7 players, and you really feel good about one of them.
Do you want to keep going back? Because in 2019, you have Jalen Hurd.
Yeah.
In 2018, you have Fred Warner. Bang, bang. Nailed it.
Makes up when you have an all-pro. When you have an all-pro, makes up for a lot. Yeah.
Tavarius Moore was the other player there. I believe he's with the Packers now. And then in 2017, it was Akello Witherspoon and CJ Beathard. Yikes.
Current Jacksonville Jaguars, CJ Beathard.
Do you think that that's going to help the Jaguars defense, having CJ Beathard in the room? Do you think he's telling all of Kyle Shanahan's secrets?
I think it'll have exactly the same impact as the Cowboys having Trey Lance ahead of that game.
That's a good point. All right. I have nothing else for this midweek pod.
I guess I have some Trevor Lawrence, some fire statistical analysis, but maybe we save that for tomorrow's preview pod to talk about.
That sounds like a preview pod topic to me.
Okay. How about this? I'll just tease it a little bit. Maybe give a spoiler.
Ooh, nice, dude.
And I hope you're sitting down. You're sitting. I can see you. You're sitting down.
Let me just really. Yeah. I am.
I think the key to beating Trevor Lawrence is to pressure him and make him uncomfortable.
What?
I did a deep dive. We can dive into it in the pod we record tomorrow.
Okay.
But I just really feel good about this analysis based on the numbers I'm seeing. And you know what? Frankly, it matches the tape.
So. Great call. I can't wait to hear all about this groundbreaking analysis.
I do think
I haven't grinded the tape yet, but ground the tape. I haven't grinded the tape yet, but I'd be willing to bet that if you can get pressure with 4 and drop 7, I think that's what the Niners should try and do this weekend.
I think you might be onto something.
I think your numbers are backing up.
Ground sounds like coffee. Like you haven't ground the tape. That feels like you're sticking it in a coffee grinder and grinding.
Dudes,
grinding feels like what you do with tape, not grind.
I ground 6 games of tape and now there's dust everywhere. No idea what to do. All right.
It's wreaking havoc in your film room.
Thanks everybody for watching and for listening. If you've not subscribed yet on YouTube, please do so. Go to youtube.com, search Candlestick Chronicles. We are right there at the top. Subscribe. Like the video with the little thumbs up. We would appreciate the heck out of that. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you have not done that, tell your friends, even your friends that aren't big football fans, be like, hey, listen to this podcast and improve their lives, because that's what a good friend does. Thanks everybody for listening.
Speaking of improving your life, drink some Candlestick Chronicles hazy IPA from our friends at Cooper.
So you really turned up once you started drinking that.
Yeah, you challenged me to go grab one, and I just thought I would, because it's more or less happy hour. So why not?
Why not? Candlestick Chronicles. Why not? Also follow us on Twitter at Candlecron. No stick, no ickles.
No stick, no ickles. We will be firing off takes there on Sunday for sure.
No doubt. All right. Thanks everybody for listening and watching.
See you guys.